everybody, Adam at Flash Building here, and in my opinion this is one of my best, and you can take this lesson and apply it to your projects whether you're a beginner just coming into working with Flash or you're a seasoned professional. All you gotta do is understand math a little bit, and I pretty much talk you through the rest and show you how everything's done to create this from scratch. What it is kind of like a full Flash website with an easing multi-plane background. So it has multiple layers that are easing at different speeds and they're different sizes. Okay, so you show you how to get menu items on there as well. There's a nice little static menu bar up top too. And you'd be a champ if you're able to, which I'm going to do this for some of my designs, is go into the Flash section at developphp.com and go down to the Adobe Flash section. There's miscellaneous, general and miscellaneous Flash and ActionScript 3 tutorials. Right there, true fit elements. If you can combine this one and that one, oh man, you'd be in business. You'll be making some of the coolest websites on the net. You'll have some nice templates down that you can create. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this tutorial. It's not too long, not too short either, but it gives you a cool effect. Okay, this will work in Flash CS3, CS4, or CS5. As long as you're using ActionScript 3, that's all that really matters. So let's create ActionScript 3 file. When we get inside, let's adjust the stage size. You can make yours whatever you want, but you would just have to adjust your math accordingly and the size of your objects accordingly. If you want, start off with what I have here and then adjust. Okay, so we'll go up to frame rate of 30. If you're in CS4, you'll already have a frame rate of 30. But if you're in CS3, you have to set it to 30. So set your frame rate to 30, get your stage size to 1000 by 600. First thing we'll do is grab a rectangle primitive. You can go over to the tools, hold down on the shapes tool and grab the rectangle primitive. Put it on stage. You'll notice we have a black border and a gray fill. I'm going to take that gray fill and I'm going to make it alpha 23%. I'm going to make sure it's sitting at 0, 0 coordinates x and y. And I'm going to make sure the size of it is twice the size of my stage, which was 1000, so I'm going to make it 2000 wide, and twice the size of the height of my stage, which was 600, so it's going to be 1200 wide here. So now I have a rectangle that is 2000 wide, 1200 high, sitting at 0, 0 coordinates. I'm going to right click, convert to symbol, movie clip, registration top left is good, and then name it clip 1 in the library. Okay, now let's give it an instance name. Go to the properties inspector and give it an instance name of clip1_MC. Alright, that one's set. Now let's create clip number 2, which is going to be our second plane or our second layer. Create another rectangle primitive. Same thing, except this one's going to be twice the size of the one we just created. So this one's set 0, 0 coordinates. Let's make it 4000. Now yours don't have to be this big, and I'm going to have some discussion at the end of the video, the end of the tutorial, about why things are the way they are and how they can be a little different. You might want to stick around for that. So let's look at this at a viewing of 25%. So now you can see we have the stage, which is 1000, and then we have a rectangle on top of the stage, which is 2000, and then we have on top of that rectangle another rectangle which is 4000 pixels wide. Now the one we just placed is still a rectangle primitive, so we're going to convert that to a symbol and call it clip 2. Now we have 2 movie clips, and here in the instance name for that one, clip2_MC. So we have 2 clips, both are instance named. Let's go over here and highlight both of them to where they're both selected. Right click, convert to symbol. We're going to nest those into a movie clip now, and we're going to call it whole magic background. OK. Now we have a movie clip called Hold Magic Background, and we don't have to give that an instance name. It's just going to be kind of like a container that's holding everything. That way we can layer other things into our Flash file on top that maybe you don't want to move around. They want to be stationary or whatever. Okay, so now we have two clips nested inside of a movie clip. Let's go inside here. Let's make sure they each have their own layer. So let's grab the big one in the back. Well, let's grab, the big one in the back, Control X. Put it on the new layer on top, Control Shift V. You can see they're still set at 0, coordinates of 0 and 0, both rectangles. So layer 2, let's just rename clip 2. You can see I grabbed it and I drug it under clip 1. So clip 1 is on top of clip 2. Make sure this one says clip 2. Okay, clip 1, clip 2. You can see when we highlight this one, the big one has a blue highlighted border around it. We highlight this one, the little one does. Alrighty, now let's create a new layer above those two and call it AS3. We are about to begin some coding. Program this thing to work. Alright, now, let's see, is there anything else we need? Yeah, I'm going to put some items inside first before we start to code this out. So let's go back to 100%. Actually, if you want to look at it at about 5%, you can just change that. Let's just change that to 15%. So now we can see the whole thing. You can see how big everything is. The stage is that little white square. And then we have this movie clip on top of that, and the movie clip that's under that one. Okay, let's go back to 100% viewing size, and let's make sure we're in clip 1. Let's lock clip 2 for now, and the ActionScript 3 layer. Double click inside of it. Layer 1, let's rename rect, because that's where the rectangle is. Let's give a new layer above it by clicking the create or insert layer button. Let's rename that stuff. This is the stuff that you're going to have inside of it. Alrighty, let's go to, and by the way, these borders on that rectangle, it's not even necessary to be there. Just for my demonstration, I'm going to keep that black border, that black edge on that rectangle. And at the end, I'm going to make this completely opaque, the fill color. Right now it's set to alpha 23, so we can see what's going on a little bit. Okay, so on the stuff layer, I'm going to grab my pen tool. I'm going to draw a leaf or something. Just something real simple for demonstration purposes. There we go. And I'm going to highlight that. Give it a fill of green. I don't want any edge on it. So I'm going to take that away. I'm going to scale this, make it the size I want. I'm also going to skew it just a bit. Maybe even this way. Yeah, that works. Okie dokie. Now I'm going to convert that to a movie clip. Call it leaf. Okay. I'm just going to place Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. I'm going to place these everywhere. Control C, Control V, but all within this box. Okay, now I have my little leaf movie clip duplicated in there a whole bunch of times and just placed in random places all throughout the inside of that rectangle. And I can grab them. See, I have the rect layer locked. So I can just highlight and grab them all, and if I want, I can set the alpha on those down to whatever I want. Let's make them about 30%. Okie dokie. Now I'm going to do the same thing. Let's double click on the side here to go back into this layer where we can highlight the clip 2 layer. Let's lock clip 1, open clip 2, and double click inside of it. Let's do that same thing. Let's go to the library, grab out leaf, and start putting them everywhere. Okay, now I could choose to put different stuff in this big movie clip. What I think I'm going to do is go into this little movie clip and grab all this stuff, Control C, go back into the big movie clip on this stuff layer, Control Shift V, and then while they're all highlighted, I'm going to go to the scale tool and I'm going to hold Shift and scale them proportionately to fit inside of that movie clip but be larger, which will give us a cool effect. Okay, now let's go double click on the side here to go back into the whole magic background clip where we see our clip 1 and clip 2 layer, and we can lock those because essentially they're done. Now we'll go into the AS3 layer and press F9 to open the Actions panel. Okay, I've placed some code in. It's going to start our application off nice, and let me explain all these lines that I just placed in. First we have a stage object, and what I did was I just made an instance or an object out of the stage, and so now it's an instance which can be targeted kind of like a movie clip would. We can find out the properties of it, like the width and the height and all things like that. And so what we'll do is the next line is set a var for stage width and stage height, these next two lines here, and we just target my stage object there, stage width property, and so the number is stored in this variable. You can see this variable is used in the equations down here. So all we did was set stage into an instance there, and then we set the height and the width into variables here of the stage. Okay, now here we set variables for numbers we're going to need in our equations that are going to be inside of our function. Okay, so we have diff1x and diff1y, diff2x and diff2y, which is the difference between the stage height. Let me just explain the first one to you, and then you'll know the other four are very similar and you can decipher what they're doing. So we have diff1x is an integer type variable. We're creating it here, and the value of it is clip1 underscore MC, which is that first movie clip we made, its width minus the stage width. So we know that the stage width is 1000, right? And we know that the clip width is 2000. So we're going to have a diff1x is going to have a value of 1000 because this is 2000 minus 1000. And these are very similar. You can check out what those are doing, map those out in your head with that same logic, okay? So the next line is the ease speed, and the ease speed is going to be the rate of movement. And each clip can have a different easing speed, but I'm going to use the same ease speed for both. And the offset, this is just in case you might want to offset things a little bit within your code. I placed another variable but set it to 0 because I'm not going to really be using it, but it might open up some more functionality that you may need sometime, so I left it. And you can adjust it if you need to. Okay, now we're going to pop in two little listeners and two little functions. So here you can see I have code comments above. It says listeners on the activator. Let's change that to stage, because this is a modified version of one of my tutorials. I think it's one I just put out a couple days ago. But I just took that code and modified it a good bit to make it do what I wanted it to do in this case. Okay, so now we have my stage, which we made an instance. We're adding event listener to it. And it's a mouse event of mouse over. So when the mouse goes over the stage, we add enter frame event. The function is listening. Well, I'm sorry. The function that's going to fire off when the mouse goes over the stage is add enter frame event, which is this function sitting right here. The function that's going to fire off when the mouse goes out of the stage, because we have a mouse over listener and a mouse out listener, is named remove enter frame event. So that's this little function right here. And all they do inside of the add enter frame event listener, we add an event listener of enter frame. And what that is a looping mechanism, to where it will constantly loop and code will run many times per second according to your frame rate. And then we remove it here when we're instructed to when the mouse goes out. Okay, now we're going to place the code that is the function activate. So you can see inside of the add enter frame event and remove enter frame event functions here, we have a function called activate that we haven't coded yet. And if I tried to run this file right now, I'd get an error because it's looking to fire off a function called activate that's not even here yet. So basically, when the mouse goes over the stage, you're going to run this function called activate in an add event listener for enter frame, which is a looping mechanism many times per second. Then when the mouse goes off of the stage, you remove that event. You can choose not to remove that event. It's up to you. Okay, so now I'm going to pop in that function and let's take a look at it. So here we have lines 26 through 41 is function activate. Now let me explain to you what happens inside of this function. So just so you know, this enter frame event is firing off multiple times per second, running this activate function multiple times per second. Okay, you got to keep that in your head. Alright, now we have a set of variables here. The first set are setting the division number that is going to be the mouse X, wherever the mouse is at that second on stage as this event is firing off. Wherever the mouse is at that second on stage divided by the stage width. And that number is stored in a variable called div X. Then we have div Y, which is set up in a similar fashion. And that number is used in these equations down here, or in these variables rather. And then these variables are used in these equations here. So these variables are the move amounts. These are how much each clip is going to move. Move X and move Y are going to be for clip 1, which is, let's see, right here. Diff 1, you can see diff 1X is referring to clip 1, and diff 1Y. Diff 2X is referring to clip 2. So here we use that. So this div X, we use div X times diff 1X. And that number is stored in the variable called moveX. That's stored the movie clip. Everything knows how much to move. You know, each clip is going to be aware of how much it should ease around and move according to where the mouse is. That's what that variable is for. So this one is for move X and move Y is for clip 1, and move clip 2X and move clip 2Y is for clip 2. Okay? And so here in the final little lines of code, the last 4 that really make the objects move around, after we get all these numbers that we need, we set the X position, and that's how the movement occurs. And we set the X position and the Y position, so we get up and down and side to side movement out of each clip. And we use the ease speed. We divide everything by the ease speed, and that's how we get the easing effect to happen. And it happens by multiple times per second, placing it in a new position and new coordinates that it has to move to, and it creates the ease effect. So what we have here in this line, I'll just explain the first one, and then the other 3 are very similar. So clip 1 is X position, where it's going to live, or where it's going to wind up, is equal to the offset, and really it just keeps compounding the number by adding, by using this type of operation here, plus equals. It kind of keeps compounding it, so you don't lose an original number. It kind of just changes. And so what you want to do is say offset, which is set to 0, remember, you can change that number, minus move X minus clip 1 X position. And you divide all of that by the ease speed, and that's the math. If you don't understand how math works, you know, that's as clearly as you're going to get an explanation of how this math works. So it's 0 minus move X, which is attained here. So really you just kind of trace back to the math in these variables to get what numbers these would be. But these are always changing. These numbers are always changing, and that's how we get the effect to happen. So now let's press Control Enter and see what we got. Oh, that's awesome. Look how awesome that is. Isn't that awesome? You gotta love it. Now, there's a little bit more to cover here. Okay, we've set the math up in such a way that we can grab these movie clips now. And let's say we had a button menu that was on one of these layers inside. And we wanted it to be dead center when the file came into view. Just place these wherever you want them. And the math will still work the same. So let's just make everything dead center on top of the stage as best we can here. Let's see, right about, that looks good. Something like that. Now press Control Enter. You can see it's starting in the center now. Where really wherever you want it to start, it'll start. And that is an awesome effect. You gotta love it. You can have buttons in there. I'm gonna show you how to put buttons right now. Buttons, menu items, other things flying around, whatever. And those don't have to be, those can be any shapes you want. They don't have to be the same kind of shapes. They can be different kind of shapes all over the place. You can put whatever you want in those movie clips. Alright, now we're going to place another layer above clip 1. And like I said, you could just put your button menu right inside of this movie clip if you wanted. Or the smaller movie clip, if you want to put it in there. You just put a button menu. And I'm viewing it 20%. If I was at 100%, that's what it would look like here. Let's get back to the stage here. I could put a button menu right here. And it would float around and everything. But I want my button menu above everything else. So here's clip 1 and clip 2. Let's go back to 20%. So here's clip 1, clip 2. Above those, I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it menu. And I can very easily program this thing to fly around with everything else. Or I can set it static. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to put a rectangle right on top. That goes across the whole stage. I'm just going to make it like a gray or something. And then press Control Enter. You can see that menu stays on top. You can also make that a little bit opaque, or that menu bar rather will stay on top. Make its fill a little bit opaque and you'll be able to see the leaves flying around behind it, which is a cool effect. And then you can put whatever menu items you want right up in there. Any buttons, and we've got tons of button tutorials, menu item tutorials at developphp.com. You can put any kind of menu items you want up in there. Make any kind of buttons, and they will stay stationary. Now inside of these clips, let's just go inside this little one. Let's target this little item right here. Or let's just make a new one. Here. Grab a rectangle. Put it dead center. Make it blue or whatever color. And then right click it. Convert it to symbol. You can make it a movie clip button or a regular button. Let's just call it button. Okay. And there's a button. Now let's press Control Enter. And you can see that button is now flying around. When I go over it, it is clickable. And let's go inside of it and give it a different overstate, and you'll see that it's active. Let's make it yellow when it goes over. See? And that's how you would have menu items inside if you want. And I think it's cooler to have your menu items, your cool little buttons, to be floating around as well, but maybe not as fast as everything. Now here's a little hint for you. Here, let me go ahead and remove that button. Control X. Just get back out of that movie clip into the whole magic background timeline here. And what we can do is, if you wanted a movie clip that had a button menu in it, but say you didn't want it to move around as much as these other layers do, you can place it here, and instead of making it, see how our stage is 1000 by 600? Instead of making this clip 2000 by 1200, it could be 1500 by what, 800 or 900 rather, 15 by 9. That way, and you can set it up in the same way you set those up. That way it wouldn't move around so much. So you can put a third one in there. And I think I'm going to do that. And it will be in the free source files that you can download from developphp.com for this lesson. Okay, I just decided to add a clip 3_MC, with menu selections inside of it that's going to float around in the scene. And I made it 1200 by 900 just like I said I would. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to set it up and get it working just like the others are. I'm going to take those two lines right there so I can have a diff 3x and a diff 3y. Change those to 3. Then I'm going to go down here to inside of the activate function. I'm going to grab those two lines because we're going to have to move the clip 3's x and the clip 3y according to diff 3x and diff 3y. And then simply all we have to do is add two lines here under these, and now we can, these lines will actually create the movement. Let's see, that's clip 3, 3. Just change all the 2's to a 3. It's that easy. It is so easy. Okay, now let's press Control Enter, see what we got. Oh, that's very cool. See? So you can see they move around at a different rate than everything else does. You can see that text doesn't sit too still in there like that, but that's cool. Just for demonstration purposes, it's beautiful. And it doesn't even have to move around at all. You can just comment out those lines there and here and here. And now it'll sit still with those buttons on top, which is pretty cool. I almost like this better. So I'm going to leave it like that. Hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and there's many more like it at developphp.com. You can integrate a lot more of the other Flash files into this file to make a full website. Maybe you want a little MP3 player somewhere, or whatever you want. Galleries you can throw in here. And I've made it this really set up smart to where on scene 1 you can see everything is a whole one big movie clip. So that way other things can be added on top. You add a new layer, boom, you put new things on top of everything if you want. Or set up a preloader from using some of our other files, whatever you want to do. But this one is really cool. I'm digging this a whole lot. I like it. Okay, we'll see you next lesson.